Welcome back to Daytime Ottawa. We are back to talk debt. Listen, we've talked inflation on this show. We've seen, food inflation, energy increases when it comes to costs. It's affecting Canadians right across the country. And here to tell us some of the latest statistics according to StatsCan, I'm joined by Bolduc, Senior Vice President of BDO Debt Solutions. Welcome to the show. Great to have you back.
Thank you.
Nice to have you in person.
Yes, absolutely.
Let's talk about some of those statistics I mentioned off the top there. What are we hearing when it comes to debt?
Yeah, well, the latest statistics to come out of StatsCan is that the household debt ratio is at 182%.
Okay.
It's near a record high. So what that means is people owe $1.82 for every dollar they earn. Now, it's important to keep in mind it's an average. There's a lot of people below that average, but there's a lot of people over that average as well. So, people's indebtedness are going up. What they also found in those statistics is that disposable income is going up about 1%, while debt is going up 2%.
Really?
So twice as fast. And in particular, older millennials and Gen Xers, that debt's been going up 4%. And what's happening with the cost of living, inflation, rising interest rates, it's taking a bite out of everyone's budget, and people are relying more on credit, especially that demographic who tends to have houses and kids and a lot of people to feed.
Well, and I guess that's the biggest danger, right? When you get into debt and then all of a sudden you start turning to things like your credit card, and people feel like they don't have any other solution but the credit card. That's a big interest rate right there.
Yes, absolutely. When you use credit to make ends meet, you have to pay it back.
Yeah.
And the way things are trending, people may not be able to do that. And and a lot of people do fall in that trap because it does catch up. Using consumer credit to make do with day-to-day needs, you have to pay for that.
Well, and I'll throw we talked before the show, those money borrowing. In the money borrowing industry, right? You go in certain neighborhoods and you see, I'll just throw out Money Mart as an example, but you see that you want to talk interest rates, and those are really some of the most vulnerable people in society that are turning to things like that.
Yeah, well, especially people getting payday loans. The effective interest rate on that is like 400 to 600%. Think
unbelievable.
About that. And sometimes they also have lines of credits, and you're looking at 30 to 40% annual interest. So that really adds up. That's one of the red flags. We see a lot of things getting out of control.
Why not better regulated, Andre? You mentioned as well, Quebec has much stricter regulations, I guess, than we see here in Ontario. Is that right?
That's correct. What needs to happen is they need to limit the effective rate of interest. Once you do that, you see a lot less players in that market. And that's what happened in Quebec. We're not quite there in Ontario.
Right, yes, of course. But let's talk about, so why are people finding themselves, without pointing out the obvious, we've seen mortgage rates go up. I mentioned, food costs, energy costs. What are some of the other things that people are going into debt, causing their debt?
Well, it's mostly relying on credit to make ends meet.
Okay.
So they don't have a budget that balances, or they're not living within their means. And people aren't saving the way they used to. And when you're not living within your means, you get stuck in that trap. And it's also important for people, beyond that, they have to live below their means, because if you don't have savings, you're never going to pay down that debt.
Right.
And if you're just stuck at minimum payments, you never get ahead.
So let's talk solutions then. How do you avoid taking on more debt and then at the same time trying to pay off some of your debt?
Yeah. Well, number one is to budget. Like I said, live within your means, then live below your means. That's the only way you'll save and accumulate additional funds to then put a plan in place to pay down your debt. So you want to get off the minimum payments for consumer debt. And if you can't do that, you need to get help from a professional such as myself. As a licensed insolvency trustee, that's what we do. We help people find solutions where they can't do it.
Right, I was just going to say, what does insolvency mean? So for a viewer at home that says I'm in debt and they don't understand, what the term means, what exactly does that mean?
It's when you can't pay your debts as they come due, or you're struggling paying your debts. A lot of times people use other credit to pay other debt. That's robbing Peter to pay Paul, for example, or getting in with payday loans and not being able to get out of that cycle. So I would consider those people insolvent.
Okay. and that other scary word we hear is bankruptcy. And, we've seen individual bankruptcies, it's a roller coaster as far as numbers go, if we look at even the last 10 years. And I know you've said before, like, yes, that's a scary word, but you don't have to go bankrupt. So how do you help people that find themselves in this insolvency create sort of a plan for themselves?
Yeah, well, first off, I would say about 75% of the people we do meet and provide a solution to, they'll do what's called a consumer proposal.
Okay.
So they can avoid bankruptcy. It's a way of making a settlement with your creditors to avoid bankruptcy. For a minority of people, bankruptcy is what makes the most sense. So if they have very low income and no assets to lose, that's their cheapest alternative, so they'll go down that route. But the majority do a consumer proposal, and it's important for people.
So walk me through the process then. I come to you and you suggest a consumer proposal. What does that look like for me?
We do a full assessment of your situation. We look at your debts, your assets, your budget. We present that information to your creditors, and we help you put a proposal together. How much are you going to pay a month? For how many months? It's typically 60 months, 5 years. And at the end of that process, you're debt-free when it comes to consumer debt. You can keep your house, you can keep your car typically.
Okay.
And your creditors get to vote on it. We present something to the creditors that's viable.
Right.
And the vast majority of the time, they do accept it. They may negotiate a bit, but we get most consumer proposals through.
Very quickly, Andre, if part of your debt is, say, you owe tax to CRA, do you work with Canada Revenue Agency as well?
Yes, we can work with taxes, student loans in certain instances, pretty much every type of debt.
Because there are payment plans available, right, in all of those situations. So let's say you owe $15,000. Well, you don't necessarily have to pay that off all in one lump sum.
No, you don't. Typically, like I said, it's a monthly payment, and everything goes in there. Your house and your car, you'll keep paying like you are usually.
Right.
But anything that's a consumer debt, government debt, it all goes in there.
Andre, thanks so much for sitting down with us. Always a pleasure having you. Don't go away. Lots more Daytime Ottawa coming up right here on Rogers TV.